Okay, welcome to another video. What we're going to do today is take a look at a distribution I've not looked at in a very long time, which is Linux Lite. So they've just had a new version released, or version 5.2. I'm reading through the release notes here. It's quite a large update which should give us plenty to take a look at. Now, Linux Lite is one of those distributions that aims to be a good choice for first-time users coming over from Windows, and as such the desktop is going to be laid out in such a way to sort of mimic the look and feel of Windows. Now, it's based on Ubuntu with a base of 20.04.1 and it uses the XFCE desktop environment. So we're in the live ISO right now and the size for this one is about 1.4 GB. And as per usual, we're going to go ahead and install it natively onto the main computer here and take a little look around. So it's using the standard Ubiquity installer from Ubuntu, so let's go ahead and continue with the English language. Now we want English UK for our keyboard layout, and let's just test it to make sure everything is working as it should, and continue. So we have just the two options here. We can download updates while installing Linux, which we will leave checked, and then we can also install third-party software and continue. So it's now going to start scanning for existing installations that are currently inside this computer, and I'll imagine it will just pick up basically the Ubuntu ones. So the installer has detected that the following disks have mounted partitions. Do you want the... So we're going to go ahead and see if the installer can unmount these partitions for us before we continue. And hopefully it has no problem doing that. Perfect. So installation type, it has indeed picked up an existing install of Ubuntu 20.10. So what we're going to do is erase disk and install Linux, which will then let us choose the drive. And you might be familiar with this drive if you've been watching the channel recently. The poor old Sobren NVMe is going to yet again be used for our installation. Now I'm going to imagine it's going to use the same partition layout as standard Ubuntu, which of course is two partitions, one EFI, and the rest is all assigned to root using the ext4 file system. Continue. And London is the place. Let's continue. Okay, so user account time, we're just going to keep it super simple and call this one Lite, type in our password, and as per usual we're also going to be logging in automatically. Now as soon as I press continue, I'll be starting my stopwatch so we can see exactly how long this takes to install. And with that being said, I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so the installation has complete, and that one clocked in at around about 4 minutes and 46 seconds once we'd got past all of the user input. So with that being said, let's reboot and check out our freshly installed Linux Lite desktop. Alright, so we have landed at our desktop, and the first thing we are greeted with is the Linux Lite welcome screen. Now as this is meant to be sort of a good choice for a first time user, we're going to kind of pretend we are that first time user, and then we're going to judge this distribution based on that. So we're going to go through the first steps of the welcome screen, go through all of them and see how easy of a process that is. So starting with install updates. So step 1, install updates. Let's see if we've got any updates to grab. Okay, so it's updating software sources and your system is completely up to date. So step 2, install drivers. So I'm just going to skip that part because we shouldn't really need to. So step 3, setting a restore point. Again, using that sort of Windows sort of terminology, what that's going to do is create a system snapshot using timeshift with rsync. Let's go ahead and do that now. Type in our password. And here we go. So we're going to go ahead and just press next. Estimating system size. It shouldn't take too long on this part. It shouldn't also take too long on the snapshot because we're going to be using quite a fast drive for the snapshot location. So it's automatically selected the SSD T3, which is what we're going to be using, and next. So we're going to just pretend we're a new user and just press next to everything. Next. Okay, finish. So it's now time to create our first snapshot or system restore point. Okay, so that's going to take around about 2 minutes or so. So I'm going to pause the video here while this completes and be back in just a moment. Okay, so our snapshot has completed and that took a little less than 2 minutes. So what we're going to do is just right click and go to browse files and see that it has indeed copied everything over. Perfect. So now we can continue with the next step. So we have installing language support. I'm just going to skip that part for now. We then have UEFI secure boot and select our light or dark theme. So I do believe the default theme that we are in is the light theme. So let's just open up our files manager, which of course is going to be Funa as we're using XFCE and it's version 1.8.14. So with this window open, let's see if we can repaint the window to the dark theme without having to close anything. Perfect, that happened very quickly and I actually quite like that dark theme. So we'll go into the appearance package in just a moment to see exactly what these themes are, but I think that's a pretty decent dark theme. And now back to light. Nice, super easy. I can't see anyone having any trouble with that. Let's scroll down. keyboard and numlock, and upgrading. So we're already on 5.2, but let's just click it and see what it says. You are already running the latest release. Okay, Lite software. So this is their own sort of package where it's going to include a lot of commonly used applications that a new user might want. But before we go through that, we're going to do a reboot and see how much RAM this uses on a fresh boot. And let's just see if we have HTOP installed out of the box. We do indeed, and as you can see, it has also created us a 2 GB swap file. So what we're going to do now is reboot, check the RAM, and then continue through the welcome screen. And we are back. So RAM wise, it's using a little over 700 MB on a fresh reboot at around about 718, which isn't super high, but obviously with XFCE you can get it a little bit lower than that. So let's carry on with our welcome screen. So we was on the install packages, so we're going to go ahead and jump straight to that. So let's just go to install, scroll all the way down to Lite software, and there it is. So let's go to Lite software. It's going to ask you for a password prompt. And would you like to update software sources now? Let's press yes. So that's just going to update the software sources, and we have two options, so we can install software or remove. We'll try both. So let's go ahead and install software. Okay, so it's opening a window. It's taking a little while to get all of the options for us, but I do believe it has loaded them all. So let's just have a look at what we've got. So we've got Audacity, Calibra, Chrome web browser, Dropbox, Etcher, FileZilla, a games pack which includes Solitaire, Mahjong, Chess, Mine, Sudoku and Tetris. I think that's probably mainly from the GNOME suite of games. We then have Genie, Handbrake, which is for like transcoding different video formats, and then iDevices Manager. I've never used this, so manage your iDevices with GTK Pod. Fair enough. So we could also install the Instant Messenger, which is going to be Pigeon, which is a pretty decent multi-protocol chat client that can use a lot of different services for sort of instant messaging. We then have Kodi, we have the music player, and it's going to be Clementine. Nitro Share, so I actually really like this program. Think Warpinator for Linux Mint. It will let you sort of transfer files from other computers on the same local network as long as it's got Nitro Share installed as well. We then have the note-taking journal, which is Zim. We have the OBS Studio, Password Manager, which is going to be using KeyPass, Play on Linux, which again, this is kind of tailored to people that have probably mainly used Windows most of their life, so that's a cool thing to have there. We then have Remote Desktop Software, which is going to be Remina, and Redshift, which will adjust the color temperature of your screen, so it's quite good to use at the night to save strain on your eyes. We then have Restricted Extras, Simple Screen Recorder, Skype, Sound Juicer, so a tool to extract music tracks from CDs, fair enough. Spotify, Steam and Teams. I've never actually used Microsoft Teams, but again, to sort of capture that sort of Windowsy market, you can also install Teams. TeamViewer, which again is remote desktop software, Telegram, Instant Messenger client, torrent software, and it's going to be installing Deluge. And then we also have the Tor web browser, which is an interesting thing to have on the sort of welcome screen there. So video editing software, and it's going to be OpenShot. Not my favourite sort of video editor, but very sort of beginner friendly, so it's understandable why that is selected. VirtualBox for virtual machines, weather monitor, webcam software, Wine and Zoom. So we're going to trial it out with Nitro Share, as it's not a huge package, so it shouldn't take us too long. So we've selected Nitro Share, we go down to install. So the following software has been selected. Do you want to proceed? I do indeed. So it's going to open up the little dialog there to download and install the package, and we are done. So very quick, installation has successfully completed. And if we open up our application menu, which is Whisker menu, it should now be appearing right there. So there we go, Nitro Share. Now let's try our layout with the remove software. So I believe it will probably open up the same kind of window, but then it's only going to have the software that you have installed through the Lite software package. So again, we're just going to click it and press remove. And now it's going to go through the same sort of steps, but instead of installing it, it's obviously going to be removing it. So again, little dialog removing the packages, and we are done. Okay, that's a very sort of simple and straightforward process to install some additional programs that I could see a new user finding quite useful. So let's quit that and see if there's anything else in this welcome screen that we need to take a look at. So we've got hardware recommendations, and we are done. Perfect. So now that that's out of the way, let's take a general look around the desktop. So again, it's going to be set up in a sort of traditional Windows way, single panel layout with your application launcher to the left. So if we go into our panel preferences, we can see what items we have got. So Whisker menu, a show desktop button like so, a couple of launchers for Firefox, Files and our terminal. Windows buttons, which is of course where you're going to minimize and restore applications. And then we have a workspace switcher, which by default is set up with 2 workspaces, and of course we can drag and drop things in between them like so. And then we have notification area, pulse audio, and date and time. So very standard, easy stuff. We have desktop icons enabled out of the box, and if we go into desktop settings, it has included some new sort of community wallpapers in this version. So let's try out one of these more greyish kind of ones there. Not bad. We're going to leave it on that for the rest of the video. Now, applications wise, let's see what we've got. So in settings, there's going to be quite a lot here, because I do believe all of the Lite suite of applications are all going to be here. So we have Lite tweaks, Lite system report, Lite sources, Lite sounds, Lite software, Lite network shares. We'll take a look at all of this in just a moment. Now in accessories, we have backups, which is probably Dejaed up. It is indeed. So as well as Timeshift, we also have a more traditional backup software program, Dejaed up, which allows you to sort of back up over your network files and even some of your cloud services like Google Drive, and you can set it on whatever kind of schedule you like. Let's continue. So I think that's pretty much everything in accessories. Of course, we have the text editor, which is Mousepad, which is a very common text editor you'll find on a lot of XFCE desktops. So in graphics, we have document scanner, image editor, which judging by the little icon there is going to be GIMP, Paint, and photo manager. So let's see what version of GIMP that we're going to be using. And you might notice a lot of the package names aren't the sort of traditional generic names of the package. Instead of it's got sort of a name like photo editor, for example, for GIMP, again to make things a bit easier for a new user. So let's go into help and about. And we're using GIMP version 2.10.18, which is a pretty recent version, so no issues there. So is there anything else in graphics? We have Paint, Photo Manager, nope. So in Internet, we have Mail Client, which is going to be Thunderbird. We have networks, connections, and support. And of course, your default web browser is going to be Firefox, and it should be a nice recent version. Let's just double check. Version 82.0. Let's keep moving. So that's everything that we've got in Internet. Now in Multimedia, we have the VLC media player. Good choice. Volume control, and then a CD DVD burner. I can't remember the last time I've burnt a CD or a DVD, but there we go. So in Office now, we have some applications from the Libra suite of applications, and as you'll notice, it's not again got the generic name. It's got like a more of a description of what the program is. So for Writer, it's WordPress, word processor. We then have presentation and spreadsheet, as well as PDF viewer. So let's open up word processor, and see what version of Writer we are using. So it looks like quite an old version to me, and it is indeed. So it's using version 6.4.6.2, but of course we are now on version 7. So if you wanted a more up-to-date version of LibreOffice, it might be worth going and installing that and removing this. Let's keep going. So that's everything in Office. Now we have multi-system. So package manager, I do believe that's Synaptic. So it has Synaptic installed out of the box, which is probably where most of your package installations are going to take place. And as you can see, out of the box we have 1,932 packages installed. So is there anything else in system? Partition drives is going to be gparted, which is where we can set up all of our sort of partitions for different drives and format to different file systems and all of that good stuff. And do we have anything else we want to check out? So we have system information, Timeshift again. No, so I think that's pretty much everything. So now what we're going to do is jump into the settings manager for XFCE and take a look at some of the Lite applications. Let's go into our settings manager. Bang. Okay, so there's quite a lot here. So let's scroll down. We have Lite Auto Login, Lite Desktop. Let's check out Lite Desktop. So select the desktop icons you wish to enable or disable. So we can just do that. Click OK. So we've already got this PC there. So let's go back onto it and just... Okay, so we can set up our desktop icons in this little window there. Fairly simple program, but it might be useful for some users. So now we are on the Lite info. So this tool is designed to share basic hardware information with the rest of the community. So I'm not going to do that, but it's there for those that might want to. So Lite network shares, I guess this is where we can set up things like file shares like Samba, etc. And as you can see, it's updating Samba. So Samba is a software, So again, we can set up all of our network shares through that as well, and it will open up the conf for SMB. Okay, let's close that and keep going. So then we have Lite software we've checked out. We have Lite sounds, so we can enable or disable system sounds. Fairly straightforward, we don't need to spend too much time on that. Lite sources, so I'm not sure what this is going to open for your sources list. Let's have a look. So it's going to load Lite repositories, and here's all of our repositories. So select a repository mirror. So let's go ahead and go for United Kingdom, England, and use selected repository. So it's now switching our mirror, updating our cache, and we are done. So it's now changed our mirror to the more sort of close one to us, which should make things a bit quicker. And we can close that now because we've already done that. So let's quit. And then we have Lite System Report. So Lite System Report is an analysis and report generator tool for Linux Lite. It generates a HTML report on your system's hardware and software. Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's go for everything. Create me a report. So it's collecting system information, and we've also got an update to grab. So once that's done, we'll jump into the update. And there we go. We've got a full report of all of our hardware that's currently on the system, which is quite handy, to be fair. I think I quite like that. And then we could choose to save it to the desktop. And there is our system report. And of course, because it's a HTML file, it will open up in your web browser. Nice. So then we have Lite tweaks. What can we do with Lite tweaks? So select the task you wish to perform. So this is where we can just clean things up like boot fix, clear memory, etc. We can change our default web browser. Okay, that's quite a lot we can do here. Oh, it's even got the option for ZRAM there as well. TLP for laptops to improve your battery and all of that good stuff. We can clear our Firefox cache. Nice, okay, pretty handy. Let's keep going. So Lite upgrade, so we need to do an update. I wonder if this is going to pick up our update. It won't, so we're going to go ahead and update in just a moment. So Lite user manager, so a nice little GUI there to manage your user groups, etc. Let's keep moving. Lite welcome, and then the Lite widget. So we can have a little desktop widget for Linux Lite, so let's go ahead and enable that and see what system information it does give us. Okay, so the Lite widget has been enabled. So it's a transparent little widget there. It tells us our CPU usage as well as memory logged in and our firewall status, which we'll go into in just a moment. And can we move it around? Or is it sort of fixed on that position? I'm sure we could move it around. But anyway, let's keep going. So I'm going to disable that one for now. Okay. So I think that's everything as far as the Lite suite of applications. So now let's jump into the firewall config. Type in our password and see how simple the firewall is. So we can enable, disable or show status. Let's see what the status is at the moment. So our firewall is currently disabled. So let's go ahead and enable the firewall. Starting, and it's now enabled. So now if we go to show status, our firewall is currently running. There we go. Fairly straightforward. So we do need to grab an update. So I do believe that's little icon down here. So let's go ahead and install updates. So Linux Lite updates. We'll now fetch the update list. Click cancel or continue. We're going to go ahead and continue. So I'm not sure what it's going to be using to update it. Okay, so it's just going to use the little dialog there. Okay. So we've got a list of updates to grab. What are we going to be updating? Samba, mainly Samba. We've got Python 3 Samba. Okay, let's update now. So I'm going to pause the video here and come back once that's finished. Okay, so our update has complete and we have the option to view the Linux Lite update logs. Let's see how that actually displays it. And there we go. So we've got a list of the updates in this little log here. And again, we can save that to anywhere we like, and it's going to be a plain text file. Let's save that again to the desktop. Okay. And there we go. So I think that's pretty much all of the stuff we're going to take a look at as sort of new things and features. So now let's just have a little play around with this desktop and see how we do. Before we do that though, I am interested to see if we have any snap or flatpak support out of the box. So we don't have snapd installed, very nice. And do we have flatpak installed? We don't, so we will install flatpak so we can install Kdenlive like we usually do to edit this video. So actually let's go ahead and do that now. So I don't think we're going to use GNOME software or anything like that. So we have for software just the package manager of Synaptic, Lite software and software and updates. So we're also going to install the GNOME software package as well. Alright, let's open up a terminal. And do we have Windows snapping with super and directionals? We don't. So because the super key is assigned to here, it might conflict with snapping this left and right using the super key. But of course we can use the drag and drop feature. with our mouse. Got a bit of a weird gap there. What's all that about? Interesting. Okay, let's go to our quick setup and install Flatpak for this computer. So we want to install Flatpak, and we're also going to install GNOME software and the plugin here. So let's copy that over. Now we shouldn't need to we should just be able to grab this package and that will pull in GNOME software for us. That way we can save characters. There we go. So let's do that now and just make sure that is indeed going to pick up GNOME software. Okay, so the following packages are going to be installed. Upstream, GNOME software, perfect. Let's go ahead and do that, and that's going to fetch 157 MB of additional disk space. And while it's doing that, let's get the FlatHub repository enabled as well. It's quite interesting that they've chosen not to use any sort of universal packaging platform out of the box. I would have thought they would have at least had Snap, as this is based on Ubuntu, but it's fairly straightforward to add it yourself. Okay, let's add up the FlatHub repo, and we will need to do a restart for it to all actually take effect. But let's just make sure that GNOME software has been installed before we do that. It has indeed. So what we're going to do now is reboot, install Kdenlive, and then just have a little play around with some things. Okay, so we are back. Let's go ahead and just pop open up GNOME software. There we go, and let's cross our fingers that the FlatHub repos have been added and everything is working as it should. Let's go shopping. There we go, so it's getting the metadata for FlatHub, which means we can nice and easily install all of our packages now from GNOME software, but we could also use Synaptic, of course, as well for traditional package management. So it's taking a while there, but I do believe it's just about to finish. There we go, perfect. Let's go ahead and search for Kdenlive. Now we're going to have a few entries, but no, we just have the one, so we can change the source up here. So again, because it hasn't got Snapd installed out of the box, you are just going to get the one entry with all of the sources in the one sort of entry here. So we're going to go ahead and grab it from the FlatHub as opposed to the native package, which is what I always do when I'm installing Kdenlive and I'm not on a KDE desktop. Okay, so Kdenlive has now been installed, so let's just launch that and make sure everything is working as it should with our Flatpak version of Kdenlive. Perfect, so editing this video is going to be nice and easy. Now what we're going to do is jump into the appearance package and see what the default themes are and whether there are some additional themes and icons out of the box. So, appearance. So we're using Adapter, but we also have Adapter Nocto, Adwater, Adwater Dark, and then we have Greybird and Greybird Dark as well. I'm actually quite a big fan of the Greybird Dark, so we're going to switch to Greybird Dark. So icons wise, we're using Papyrus Adapter, and it has a few more of the different variations of Papyrus, as well as the Ubuntu Mono Dark and Lights, ePapyrus, GNOME, and then Adwater. So not a crazy amount of icons installed out of the box. So what we're going to do is go back into the Windows Manager now, and just make sure that the theming is the same across all of the packages to get a nice consistent look and feel. Okay, so I've also just gone ahead and installed NeoFetch because I'm quite intrigued about what the output looks like with the feather logo. Actually, I quite like it. So that's what our logo looks like in NeoFetch. And as you can see, we can also check the kernel version that we're using here, which is version 5.4.0-52. So I don't think I'm going to spend too much more time on here, but what we are going to do is check what the default shortcuts are and see whether they mirror what a Windows user might expect. So let's go into Window Manager, jump over to Keyboard, and let's also open up Shortcuts, which is right about there. There we go. So what have we got? Of course, Whisker is going to be your super menu, so that is pretty much the same as the Start menu on Windows. So Task Manager, the XFCE Task Manager is Shift Control Escape, Shift Control Escape. There we go. So you can pop open up your Task Manager. I wonder if Control Alt Delete is bound to anything. There we go. So we can get to the logout sort of dialog there with Control Alt Delete, and now let's see what our sort of navigation keyboard shortcuts are in the Windows Manager. So Alt F4 should close most running applications. So if you wanted to add your tiling keyboard shortcuts for your sort of splitting windows side by side, we can do it here. So let's go for tile window to the left, and let's see if it will work out of the box by setting it with super and left. It might not though, because sometimes what happens on some XFCE desktops is because you've got Whisker assigned to your super key, it can sometimes conflict and one or the other won't work. So as you can see, it's just not going to work there. So what you might want to do is change your Whisker shortcut to something else and then use the sort of traditional super left and right if you wanted it to work with that. So what we're going to do is just for the moment disable the Windows, the whisker menu, super and L, and let's just do it for something like Control and plus. And now we should be able to set this to super and left and super and right, and it shouldn't have any issues now splitting side by side. There we go. And what I tend to do when I'm on XFCE anyway is I'll install Albert, the application launcher, and bind it to Alt and space once I remove the context menu from here, and then I can have all of them set to sort of super left and right like that, and it'll work kind of how I like to, and I'm a big fan of the Albert launcher. Now, is there anything else in here that I want to take a look at? I wonder what the default shortcut is for moving workspaces. So it's Control Alt. Now, I haven't used Windows in ages, so someone in the comments will have to let me know if that is also the default for Windows. So what I want to do now is get a final RAM check now that we've made a few changes. We haven't gone too crazy though. We've left it pretty much on the defaults, and then we're going to wrap it up there with some final thoughts on what I think of this distribution. Okay, so we are back, and as you can see, the RAM's looking a whole lot better actually now at 650 as opposed to the 700 or so we was getting before, which is a bit more for what you'd expect from a traditional XFCE install. Now, some final thoughts on Linux Lite, and we are going to be judging it from kind of the perspective of a new user making a transition from Windows to Linux, because I kind of think that's what they're going for here, and actually I think they've done a pretty decent job. So even just little things like the Lite software package, which will have some commonly used applications that they're more used to with a couple of clicks and a nice easy install, and even little things like this. So as you can see, the desktop icon here for the settings manager for XFCE is called Control Panel again, which should make them feel a bit more familiar in the desktop that they are using. Now, whether I think it's a good idea to try and get new users over by sort of mimicking Windows, I'm not sure. There's two camps to it really. There's like the first camp that thinks that if you make things as familiar as possible, you're going to attract them like that. And then there's the other camp, which I think I probably fall more into, which is you should kind of showcase what makes Linux different and all of the cool things that you can do on it, and then attract new users like that. So focus on what Linux does well and what it does different from the other sort of big two like Mac OS and Windows. But all in all, I think this is a pretty good distro, which would make for a fairly good choice for a first time user coming from Windows to Linux. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord. There's a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.